The first thing my daughter said when I arrived at the church was, "Mom, you need to leave." I looked at her white wedding dress, then at the invitation in my hand. My name was printed on it, Margaret Carter, not family, not guest. My name. I had kept that invitation in the top drawer of my bedroom dresser for 3 months, and now my daughter was standing in front of me, dressed as a bride, telling me I had no right to be there. "I'm your mother," I said quietly. Pause. "I know." "Then why are you asking me to leave?" She looked toward the chapel doors. "Because you weren't supposed to come." I wanted to ask what I had done. But before I could speak, her fiancé, Ryan, walked toward us. He looked at me and said, "Margaret, this isn't the time." I stared at him. "No," I said, "I suppose it isn't." But what they didn't know was that I hadn't come empty-handed. I had brought something that belonged to Emily's father. Something I had hidden for 22 years, and when my daughter finally saw it, everything changed. My name is Margaret Carter. I'm 62 years old. And Emily is my only daughter. When she was 5, she used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. She would pull the blanket over her head and whisper, "Mom, don't let the storm get me." And I would tell her, "It can't." "Soft, promise, promise." Back then, she believed I could protect her from anything. I believed it too, until her father died. David was killed in a car accident when Emily was 12. There was no warning, no goodbye, just one phone call early one Tuesday morning. After the police officer left, Emily found me sitting on the stairs. She looked at me and asked, "Is Dad dead?" I nodded. She didn't cry. She just stared at the floor. Then she asked, "Did he leave me anything?" I thought she meant a memory. A letter. "Something personal," I told her. "We'll talk about that when you're older." That sentence would follow us for 22 years. David had been an accountant. He wasn't wealthy, but he was extremely organized. He wrote everything down, bills, dates, appointments numbers. After he died, I found a black leather notebook inside his desk. Most of it was filled with financial records. But one sentence caught my attention. "For Emily, when she is old enough to understand." I closed the notebook. I didn't know what it meant, so I hid it. Inside a wooden box, I also kept David's old brown leather watch. I told myself that one day I would give everything to Emily, when she was older, when she was ready, when I was ready. I didn't realize that waiting would create a distance between us. When Emily was 17, she discovered the wooden box. She asked, "What's inside?" I told her it belonged to her father. "Is it mine?" I hesitated. She noticed. "When can I have it?" "When you're 25. "Why 25? "'Cause you'll understand it better." She stared at me. "You don't trust me. That isn't true." "It feels true." Then she walked away. I watched her go. I thought she would eventually understand. Instead, she remembered. And years later, that memory became part of the reason she stopped trusting me. Hunvora. Emily met Ryan when she was 24. He was charming, confident, polite, but something about him made me uncomfortable. He always seemed to know what Emily was thinking. If she disagreed with him, he would smile. If she questioned him, he would change the subject. I told Emily once that I was worried. She immediately became defensive. "You don't like him." "I barely know him. You don't trust him." "I just want you to be careful." She shook her head. "You always think you know what's best for me." I didn't realize then how deeply those words had already taken root. When Ryan proposed, Emily became distant. Eventually, she told me, Ryan thinks I need boundaries with you, I asked. What have I done? She said. You interfere. I worry because I love you, she answered. That's the problem. Pause. Then she stopped speaking to me for 8 months until the wedding invitation arrived. I thought it meant she had forgiven me. I was wrong. 3 weeks before the wedding, she called. Mom, are you planning to come? You invited me, I know. Then yes. She was silent. Then she said, Ryan doesn't want you there. I couldn't believe it. What? He thinks you'll cause drama. I won't. He doesn't want you there. Then why invite me? She sighed. I didn't know how to tell you. I sat down. So you want me to stay home? Yes. I looked at the photograph of David on my wall. Then I said, I'm still your mother, she replied, and I'm still asking you not to come. That night I went downstairs. I opened the closet and pulled out the wooden box. Inside was David's watch. Underneath it was a folded piece of paper. 3 words. She deserves truth. I opened the black notebook. For the first time in 22 years, I read everything. There were financial records, names, transfers, dates. And one name appeared repeatedly, Robert Hayes, Ryan's father. Then I saw something that made my hands shake. 3 days before David died, he had written, If anything happens to me, Emily must know. I turned the page. The money isn't the real problem. Then, it's what they're trying to hide. I couldn't breathe. For 22 years, I had believed David died in an accident. Now I wondered if he had been afraid of her before he died. I contacted David's old accountant friend, James. He looked at the records. Then he looked at me. David was investigating Robert Hayes. Why? Financial irregularities. Was Ryan involved? James hesitated. I don't know. That wasn't enough for me. So I hired an attorney. She reviewed the records. Then she said something I will never forget. Don't confront them yet. Why? Because you don't know who might have something to lose. That frightened me. But it also gave me a plan. I wasn't going to the wedding to cause a scene. I was going because my daughter deserved the truth. On the morning of the wedding, I put on my dark blue dress. I placed the wooden box in my handbag. Inside it was David's watch. I also carried the photograph. The notebook stayed in my car. When I arrived at the church, Emily saw me immediately. She walked toward me. Mom, hi, sweetheart. You came. Yes. I told you not to, I know. What did you bring? I looked at her. Something your father wanted you to have. She became nervous. Mom, please. I'm not here to ruin your wedding. Then leave. Ryan walked toward us. You need to go. I looked at him. Before I do, Emily should see this. I opened the box and placed the brown leather watch in Emily's hand. She froze. Dad's watch. Yes. You said you lost it. I never lost it. She looked at me. Why did you keep it? Because your father wanted you to have it. Ryan suddenly said, That's enough. Emily turned toward him. Why? He didn't answer. I watched his face. He was afraid, and that was when I knew. He recognized the watch. I handed Emily the photograph. She looked at it. Her eyes widened. Who's this? Robert Hayes. She looked at Ryan, then back at the photograph. And the other man, I said. Your father knew him. Ryan stepped closer. Margaret, this isn't the place. No, I said. It isn't. Then I looked at Emily. But maybe there was never going to be a better place. She turned toward Ryan. Did you know my father was investigating your dad? Ryan didn't answer. Ryan? I knew there were business problems. What kind, I don't remember. She stared at him. You don't remember? Then Robert appeared at the end of the hallway. He saw the photograph and stopped. His face went pale. He looked at me. Where did you get that? From my husband. He looked at the watch, then at the photograph, and whispered, Michael should have destroyed those. Emily turned toward him. Why? Robert said nothing, and in that silence, my daughter finally understood. There had been a secret, and everyone except her seemed to know part of it. Emily looked at me. Mom. Yes, where's the notebook? In my car. Get it. I brought it inside. She opened it. She saw her father's handwriting. Then she found the sentence. For Emily, when she is old enough to understand, her eyes filled with tears. You had this all along? Yes. Why? Because I was afraid. Of what? That the truth would hurt you. She looked at me. It did. I nodded. I know. Then she said something I never expected. You should have trusted me. I swallowed. You're right. That was all I could say. No excuses, no defense. Just the truth. The wedding didn't happen that day. Emily took off her veil. She handed it to a bridesmaid. Then she looked at Ryan. I need answers. Ryan tried to stop her. But for the first time, Emily didn't look to me for permission. She made her own decision. She called off the wedding. Later, financial investigators reviewed David's records. There were questions about Robert's businesses. There were questions about Ryan's involvement. But there was never enough evidence to prove that David's death had been anything other than an accident. That was difficult, because sometimes the truth doesn't give you the ending you want. Sometimes it only gives you enough information to stop believing a lie. Emily moved into her own apartment, not with me. She needed her independence. And I needed to learn that loving my daughter didn't mean protecting her from every difficult thing. For months, we met every Sunday for coffee. At first, we talked about ordinary things, work, weather, books. Then one day she asked, Mom, why did you sell Dad's bracelet? I looked at her. For your tuition. You never told me. I didn't think you needed to know. She shook her head. I did. I nodded. You're right. That became our new rule. No more secrets disguised as protection. No more silence disguised as love. If I didn't know something, I said so. If I made a mistake, I admitted it. And slowly, we found our way back to each other. A year later, Emily came to my house carrying a small envelope. What's that? I asked. Open it. Inside was an old photograph. Emily was 5. She was standing beside me in our backyard. On the back, she had written, You kept your promise. I looked at her. What promise? She smiled. The storm. I laughed through my tears. You remember that? I remember everything. She hugged me. And for the first time in years, I didn't hold her, like I was afraid she would disappear. I simply held my daughter, because I had finally learned something. I couldn't stop every storm. I couldn't control her future. I couldn't protect her from every painful truth, but I could stand beside her. Emily still has her father's watch. It doesn't work perfectly. It loses about 3 minutes every week. She refuses to repair it. I once asked her why. She smiled and said, Maybe I'm keeping it wrong on purpose. I laughed. You always did. She looked at the watch, then at me, and said, I think Dad would have liked that. Maybe she was right. Maybe the watch was never about time. Maybe it was about everything we thought we had lost. A father, a daughter, a marriage, 22 years. And somehow, we still had time left. I still have the wedding invitation. My name is still printed on it, Margaret Carter. Sometimes I look at it not because I'm sad about the wedding that never happened, but because it reminds me that some moments look like endings when they're actually turning points. That day, my daughter told me I wasn't welcome, and I thought I had lost her, but when she saw what I had brought, she finally saw the truth. Not just about her father, not just about Ryan, but about me. I wasn't perfect. I had hidden things. I had been afraid. I had made mistakes. But I had never stopped loving her. And sometimes, repairing a broken relationship doesn't begin with saying, I was right. Sometimes it begins with saying, I was wrong. Pause. And sometimes the person you think you're losing is the person you're finally learning how to love properly. Emily once asked me if I could stop a storm. I told her yes, I was wrong, but I was there. And after all these years, I think that's what she was really asking for. Not someone who could stop the storm, just someone who would stay beside her until it passed.